morning. This is Sandy Williamson,
And Mark Williamson.
and we're going to talk to you today about how to make cheese grits. This is what a traditional Easter meal at our house looks like, and you can see the cheese grits right up there between the salad and the asparagus and with the ham. So Mark's going to tell you a little bit about the history of cheese grits in our family.
When we first got married, I asked Sandy if she would do one particular recipe from my mother that I always enjoyed tremendously at Easter or other times that we have ham, and that was cheese grits. Now, cheese grits are a traditional Southern dish, and even though I'm not Southern or spent a lot of time in the South, my mother came across a recipe for grits, a traditional breakfast item that looks kind of like malto meal, a cereal that it's warm cooked cornmeal. So she took that cereal recipe, breakfast recipe, and turned it into a baked item for meals other than breakfast. So she would prepare the grits, and what we're going to show today is Sandy preparing the grits as my mother did.
Okay, it's time to start making the cheese grits, and one of the things I did in my kitchen was to frame some family recipes. I have my Norwegian grandmother's krumkake recipe, Mark's mother's cheese grits recipe, and then my mother's Sandy's cookies recipe. So those are around us all the time that remind us of some of our culinary heritage. So let's get started with the cheese grits. First thing we do is put 6 cups of water in the pan to boil. And then while that water comes to a boil, I go ahead and I get my butter ready to go. This recipe moves quickly. Once the grits are cooked, then you have to add all the other ingredients so that they'll melt together. And so I like to prepare everything that's going to go into the grits. First of all, we have our grits, which are not the instant grits, but the quick 5-minute grits. Grits are made from corn that they ground down, and I believe it's a Native American type of cornmeal, and it's, as Mark mentioned, a Southern recipe that you'll find throughout the South. So while it was used by Native Americans for more of a porridge, the Southerners have added a lot of spice and seasoning to it. Then, of course, we have cheese, and it calls for a pound of cheese. And being that we're quarantined, I didn't have a full pound of grated cheese, so I'm going to add some slices as well. The more cheese, the better. A stick of butter and 3 eggs, the savory spice, or you could use a seasoned salt, and then a teaspoon of salt. And I'm preheating my oven to 275. These cook kind of low and slow in the oven for about an hour. And as soon as the water boils, we'll go on to the next step, which is adding the grits. Okay, so the water is boiling. We add 1.5 cups of the grits to the boiling water. So this is the 1/2 cup. I did 3 of those. And then we stir, and we stir the entire time to avoid getting lumps. I turn it down to a little bit lower heat because they start kind of bubbling. Now, Mark was telling you that sometimes grits in the South are served for breakfast, and it's more, he called it malto meal. I've never had that. I think it's kind of like, I don't like hot cereal. I don't like breakfast much. But like cream of wheat, it's just a loose porridge, a very wet porridge. Do you want to get a shot of this, Mark? Kind of to see where it starts. So it starts off with lots of water, and then I stir and stir as it cooks to prevent any lumps and to keep it from scorching on the bottom of the pan. And then we'll come back and check on it in a minute, and you can kind of see how the grits look once they're ready to add the other ingredients. So we're getting closer to the time where we add all the other ingredients. You can see the consistency of the grits now. I've changed to stirring it with a whisk just so that it all gets blended together. And as soon as we start adding the other ingredients, I want those to move through the grits smoothly. So the whisk is probably the preferred utensil. So I'm going to start by adding the butter. I do an entire stick of butter. And that starts to cool the grits down a little bit. It starts melting right away. And I also add...
You need to hold it?
Thanks. Okay. Then I add all the cheese. You can stir a little bit.
It's hard to stir and be the camera operator, honey.
You can do it. Okay. So now we've got the cheese and the butter in there. And the cheese and butter are cooling down the hot grits. But they're still cooking, you can see. And I'm going to do something. Want to hold that I don't normally do, but I'm going to do it today because we are quarantine gritsing here. And I'm going to add about 2 more slices of cheese and let those melt down in there too. That'll make it nice and cheesy. I had never had grits until I met Mark. I'm from San Francisco, and that is not in the South, and we did not have grits. Of course, nowadays, different regional cuisines are very popular throughout the world. So I know they have grits now, fancy grits in restaurants and stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to temper the eggs. So I'm putting some of the hot grits in here, and this will help adjust the temperature on the eggs. And then I dump that in and I stir quickly because I do not like scrambled eggs. I do not like them. Sam, I am. Okay, so we've got the eggs are in there, the cheese, the butter, and at this point we turn the heat off and keep stirring to incorporate all of this. And then I put in another Southern specialty Tabasco sauce. Now the original recipe also called for green chilies, but Mark, do you like green chilies?
No, I do not like green chilies, Sam.
So, to liven this up a little bit and give it a little bit of a spicy bite, we add the Tabasco sauce, which it also called for, but we are leaving out the green chilies. So at this point, it's ready to go into the baking dish.
It's into a pan that has been coated with Pam to keep it from sticking. And we're just making one batch of grits today. When my mother made the grits, she used to make half of them with jalapenos or some kind of peppers. And when Sandy introduced this dish to her family, they liked it so much that they would end up eating all of it. So she usually makes 2 batches, one a large full-size batch for the group for Easter, and the other half-size batch for me to eat after everyone else is gone. Got the oven ready to go 275. We're going to slide it in here and bake it for how long, Sam?
About an hour.
About an hour, and that'll be about the length of time that it takes me to clean up the mess. If you've ever cleaned up anything with cheese cooked on it, it's a big mess, but in my case, it's very well worth it since I get to eat cheese grits.
Okay, so this is my favorite part of making grits, is watching Mark do the dishes. He was raised doing dishes because his mother had very sensitive skin. So all the kids would take turns doing dishes, and I just asked him when I met him, do you do dishes? And he said yes, and I said, well, let's get married. So all of our friends will tell you that after a big dinner, you will find Mark in the kitchen. He doesn't like the kitchen to be dirty. And I tell you what, that's a blessing to me. As my kids got older, they said that they realized Dad comes in here because he'd rather clean dishes than socialize or make small talk. But he can do both. But he does enjoy doing dishes. and appreciates me cooking, and this is one of the ways he shows his appreciation, and I'm grateful for that. Tomorrow, we are going to have our virtual Easter service. I'm not sure when you'll watch this. It's probably going to be on after Easter, but we did a ceremony or a service on Thursday that was called Table to the Cross, and we had the symbolic scriptures and recreating the last night of Jesus's life before he was crucified on the cross. And tomorrow, while we won't be celebrating with family, we will definitely be celebrating our risen Lord and the love he has for us and the price he paid for our sins. And just so grateful for that. I'm grateful for Valley Ranch, who provides this ESL program. And Mark, you're grateful for cheese grits?
Absolutely. And again, we do this Christmas anytime we have ham. So there's always a good occasion for ham, but Easter is a special time. So I appreciate gathering family, and I wish we could all be together this Easter, but we will be by the video method, and look forward to seeing my kids and talking to my sisters as we usually would around the table.
So, we appreciate you all and hope that you are practicing your English while we are out. So, until we can meet again, we've really enjoyed making this for you. We have one more that we might make because Arthur asked if we could make 2 videos. And don't tell Arthur, but we will basically do anything he asks for us because he's fabulous. So, happy Easter. We miss you all, and y'all stay safe.
Happy Easter.
Wash your hands. Bye.